Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Reva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Yapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhu cha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Ravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So who has come in?
My name is Padma. Welcome. Thank you. So I was curious about the Gita, so I thought I'd come.
Well, we start promptly at 6:30 and then we sit for 20 minutes. So if you come back, I open the door at 6. You can come.
Sorry, I had a hard time walking today.
It's always that way around here, but no problem. So why don't we go around the room for those of you who are here and not on necessarily Zoom, and just introduce ourselves for Padma. So,
Daniel,
Vinaya,
Anand,
Mike,
Uma, Shilpa.
and Jim. So, are you comfortable there?
Yes, maybe I'll move a little.
Would you prefer to be on the floor?
we have more of these from
This is fine too.
It's up to you. All right. So, Anand, I think last week you said that you would be able to chant shlokas as well. Can you read Devanagari?
yes, slowly, but I can try. Yeah.
Tonight, do you want to pass it off to him and see?
Totally.
Okay.
Well,
You need a copy of the
I
text.
do, yes. I can, is it okay?
Do you have it?
Mhm.
Okay. So, Mark, where are we? I think we're chapter 3, verse 10. Is that correct?
No, we're starting with verse 17 tonight on page 283.
Verse 17. See,
I think it's actually,
no longer read.
it's page 284.
Page
Number
284.
17, you said? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So, Anand's going to help us out.
Apologies if I mess up. Yaswat Maratireva Syad Atma Triptascha Manavaha Atmanyeva Santushta Staya Karyam Na Vidyate.
In the English?
But the man who rejoices only in the self, who is satisfied with the self, is content in the self alone. For him, verily, there is nothing more to be done.
Yes. So we're talking about karma yoga for new people in the 3rd chapter. And we're going through the 5 elements of karma yoga. First, act. We do not gain freedom by running away from the world. How should we act according to our Swadharma? Wherever the Lord places you. If he wants you to be a sannyasi and withdraw from the world, that will become very clear. If you're a householder, you've got a job and a mortgage, that's where the Lord has placed you. So for Arjuna, there he is as a soldier in the midst of battle. So what is our swadharma? According to our inherent latent proclivities. As Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss. What is it that we do that brings us joy? Then the third element, which we've been working on, what's it called? Anybody remember?
Yajna spirit.
Yajna spirit, the spirit of sacrifice. And we're using the Vedic sacrifice as mystic symbolism. It's a metaphor. And we have our definition of deva, the presiding principle over any field of human activity. So if you're a musician, you're doing work for the music god. If you're in computer science, you're doing work for the computer god. Your Shilpa's doing work for the dance god right now. So whatever it is that you're involved with, that's the presiding principle. And he's talked about in the last verse that if you cook food for yourself, you verily eat sin. What's the symbolism? If we were talking about this is exactly what we were talking about before class. Shweta is an academic. She was talking about the students where she is teaching in Chennai, and how some of them are there just because they want to make money and get a good job and move to the United States, the UK, and you know they're not. That's their goal. And this is what Krishna means when he says, when we cook food for our own use, we verily eat sin. And again, the metaphor that he's using, if you grew up in a traditional home and mother cooked dinner, first thing she'd do is she'd take a thali and go over to the mandir, give to the god. What do we get? Prasad. We always eat the Lord's leftovers. So, the paycheck that we get, the approval or acclaim that we get, we're not too concerned about that. Our job is to serve this presiding principle. Swamiji used to thunder, serve the society. In this verse, Krishna is saying, for the person who does everything for the Lord. Who's my boss? God. Who are my students? God. Who are my customers? God. Making all of it yajna. Make it sacramental. What we end up doing is exhausting vasana without creating new ones. Now, when we started the chapter, we talked a bit about Vedanta's yoga's science of vasana exhaustion. Remember what a vasana is. Is this a new word for you?
Yeah.
Vasana is a subset of sanskara. Sanskara is an impression, so that you know that that's a table. That's, you were taught that. That's a sanskara. They are not inherently problematic, but a subset of sanskara is what we call a vasana. It comes from the root vasati, which means to linger or to dwell overnight. So that when we engage in an activity from an egoistic way, I am doing the doing and I want to see what I'm going to get out of it, and will they like me and either I am so fabulous or oh, I'm terrible. I, me, mine, I, me, mine, I, me, mine. And we have what we call chintya. Now in Hindi, chintya means worry. In Sanskrit, it's subtler. It means after the fact, thinking about something. So you go to the conference, everything is fine, but you leave the conference, then your mind goes, oh, I wonder if they liked my presentation. Did I do okay? Did I not do okay? And then I need someone to come up and say, tell me if you liked it, all that kind of stuff. This is called chintya. If we engage in that, it leaves an impression in the unconscious called a vasana. It will impel me to want to repeat the action. I want to do it again. Now, a vasana has two powers. I always talk about them both. Who remembers what the first one is?
Avarna.
Avarana Shakti. What does that mean?
To cover.
To cover, veiling power. So when my mind is under the influence of vasana, the first thing that happens is I forget. Aham Brahmasmi. I forget I am Brahman. Then comes the Vikshepa Shakti, the projecting power. First, I think I'm a person. Jiva Bhavana, Ahankara, Asmita. And then I think the world of name and form is separate from me, joy-giving and misery-producing. And the third element, kartavya, literally obligatory actions. What it means is struggle. I want that, or I want to avoid that. I'll be happy when, it'll be better if. My happiness is there, then not here now. So what Krishna is saying, if we act in the world, we're going to act according to our vasanas. There's no other way to do it. But if I do it in this yajna spirit, I'm cutting down on the after the fact chintya. So I'm exhausting vasana without reinforcing them to create new. Is that making sense? That's the science behind it. And now he's going to bridge us into that fourth element, which is renunciation of the karma phalam, or in Hindi, karma phalam. Thy right is to work alone, never to its fruits. So all we get in life is work. Krishna will say, I am the karma phala data. I'm the giver of the fruits of action. So Vinay, we were talking about this a few weeks back. So you're a scientist. So you're building widgets for radar for cars. So how many times have you performed experiments and it didn't work?
I lost count.
More than 5 or 6?
A lot more.
More than a dozen?
Yes.
More than dozens of dozens?
That sounds about right. Dozens
Yeah.
of dozens.
So as a scientist, if you have a failed experiment and you give up, see, you're attached to the fruit. No, I'm not going to do that anymore. Now listen very carefully. Yes, we should aspire to excellence always. Do our best. But that is different than perfectionism. We were talking about that before class. If I have this ideal sense that I must do something perfectly, especially the first time, I have another slogan for you all. Anything worth doing is worth doing badly. Why? Because if it's the first time you've done it, you're not going to be very good at it probably in the beginning. It's going to take time and practice to develop proficiency. But if we're perfectionists and we don't do well the first dozen times, or 2 or 3 dozen times, and we quit, then we won't succeed. So we work and we give the fruits to the Lord. This is our renunciation of the fruits. Act in the spirit of service, serve the society, letting go of the outcome. Do our best. Let go, let go, let go of the outcome. This exhausts vasana without creating new ones, which over time purifies the mind. This is the science that we have in these 3 chapters, which is incredibly powerful. Any thoughts on this before we move on? Next verse.
Naiva tasya krite narko na kritina kaschana na chasya sarva bhuteshu kaschit tartha vyapashrayah.
Very good. In the
Right.
English?
For him there is here no interest whatever in what is done or what is not done, nor does he depend upon any being or any object.
So the yogi is in a different playground than the ordinary person. Back in the 2nd chapter, one of my favorite verses, Krishna had said, what is day to the yogi is night to other people. What is day to other people is night to the person of steady wisdom, the Muni. We have a different playground. Our goal in life is not to use spirituality as a way to win in the battle of life. Oh, I'm taking a Vedanta class. I'm doing it after my Pilates class and before my aromatherapy. It's okay. We start with those kinds of attitudes, but at some point, what is the goal of human life? It's moksha. It's freedom. How can I have a liberated personality? How can I be jivan mukta? How can I move through the world with freedom? So what does the yogi understand? I'm not doing meditation so I can win and get all the stuff, but I act my role in the drama of life, and the things that come to me are grist for the mill, as Ram Dass says. That's the stuff where I work this stuff out. Now, here's a very important point. Swamiji used to thunder. The physical guru is a temporary psychological device. Guru is a principle. It's everywhere and it's within us. And it operates through our karma. Let me see if I can give you an example. Who here had an experience this week that was problematic or triggering or troubling? Any of you? Tell me this is the first time you felt this way. Is it? No. So the mother keeps saying, oh, Shweta, you need to let go of this. Here, let me bring it to you. Oh, you weren't conscious enough to let go. No worries. Here it is again. And she has all eternity. And the lesson is always the same. Let go and keep our hearts open. Don't shut down. It's not about nihilism. Stay present, stay sensitive, stay open, stay vulnerable. But let go, let go, let go. So when a problem arises in life, ego says fight, flight, and freeze. Run like hell. Yoga says, oh, isn't this interesting? I got triggered. Let me lean into this a little bit. Let me not run from the situation, but be more present to it. And stay in that Sakshi Bhava, that attitude of the witness. Look. I see you. This is an agitated mind. Okay. Breathe and stay present. Don't try to fix it. Don't run. Don't avoid. Don't get drunk. Don't smoke dope. Don't eat at it. Don't do Netflix at it. Don't iPhone. Stay present to it. You don't need to go causation hunting. Oh, I'm upset because of my abusive father. No, you don't need to do that. Just stay present to the feelings. Stay present. Don't run. Be open. Be vulnerable. Be authentic. And when we can get to the point where we can see the fundamental unreality of the mind's stuff. Because all the suffering, all the misery is just a bunch of stories that our mind habitually presents. What in the past we thought was going to secure ego, make me safe, make me happy. So we do not get freedom by running away from life. So Shilpa, when's your dance concert?
June 17th.
June 17th. Are you nervous?
Yeah.
Good. That's your guru. That's your guru. Are we all invited?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
So what's your job?
Stay
Keep
present.
dancing, stay present. Keep your mind on the dance, keep your mind on the story, keep your mind on communicating. And I hope I do okay. Oh, what if I mess up? What if I get lost? That's just nonsense. It's going to arise.
Mhm.
See what I mean?
Mhm.
Your job is not to believe it. I see you are. I'm going to make you a cup of tea and just put you in the corner. But if you engage with, maybe I should cancel the concert, or what if I drink half a glass of wine before I go on stage, or some way to not be present. Valium, that's the answer. Dance with Valium. No, not gonna work. Gonna work. Just don't do something. Dance. Move through it. Had one teacher say, anxiety is excitement with the brakes on. And it's not just dance, it's any field of endeavor. Going on a date for you young people. It's just an encounter with another human being. If we let go of all expectation of the outcome, we might have a good time. And the yogi understands ultimately my peace of mind, my serenity is not dependent on external circumstances. Give up the spriha, the longing, Krishna, the thirsting, the vancha, the wanting, the kama, craving. Dive into life. What was the term I used last week? Spend ourselves in love. Empty it all out. But let go of the result. Success and failure, they belong to the Lord. All we get is work. So we're learning to step back. Watch the movie. Don't grab on. Any thoughts on this before we go on? Yes.
I agree with that. But the problem I have with it is it's easy. I understand that's what I should do. But doing it is the problem. It's like when things happen, there's this whole history of stuff in your body that
Mhm.
responds even before you can interrupt those flow of thoughts and feelings.
Do you think your body is different than your mind?
I'd say it's just maybe it's the field where it's all the thoughts in my mind express itself, perhaps. I'm not putting it in that.
The body and the mind are a subtle and gross dimension of the same thing.
Yeah.
So many people think, well, my anxiety is in my body. It's not in my mind. Well, no, it's both places. True. And the solution is abhyasa. There's no shortcut. In our Western culture, especially, we want a magic bullet. We want a pill. Xanax, fix it. We were talking about one of the sutras from Yoga Sutra, the first one of the second chapter. Tapas, swadhyayeshvara pranidhana kriya yoga. So let's take it from the inside out. First, swadhyaya, meaning I do the psychological inventory. I become familiar with what my issues are. And just like we were talking about earlier, probably they arise over and over again. It's pretty clear if you're conscious what it is that triggers you, aren't you?
More or less.
Yeah. If you pay attention and don't run, it will become very clear. Then what do? Tapas. Tapas literally just means heat. It's usually translated as austerity, but it means the effort that we take to move the habituated channels of the mind from one flow into another. Thought replacement is where we start. Oh, I'm going to do a terrible job. I've got to give this report. They're going to hate me. I'm going to fail. I'm going to be lucky to keep my job. And you go, no, that's just habituated negative thinking. Doing this for God. God is the client. It's God through me who's doing the report. Or in interpersonal relations. It works everywhere, but we've got to, this is what we call purushartha, our own self-effort. Armchair grace doesn't work. I'm just going to sit here and God's going to do it and I'm just going to wait. No, knock yourself out. You're probably going to wait a long time. We have to work. Krishna says a person raises themselves by themselves into the self. Now, the last part of that, Ishvara Pranidhana, with God's help. Trustful surrender to the infinite God. This is called yoga in action, Kriya Yoga. Tapas, Swadhyayeshvara Pranidhana Kriya Yoga. There it is. That's what the practice of yoga is. Patanjali didn't make it up. But it's manual labor. It's manual labor. You are not helpless. Maybe powerless. Luckily, we have a greater power. But there is a solution. Now, later at the end of the 6th chapter, when Krishna is talking about meditation and control of the mind, Arjuna is going to say, dude, he's going to say that. Controlling the mind is like trying to control the wind. And Krishna says, true, Dad. He does say that. But it can be done with practice. Abhyasa, vairagya. Yes, practice. Vairagya, let go, let go, let go. Over and over. Is that useful?
Yeah, I believe that, like the Buddha said, we need to know this experientially, not just intellectually. And the only way to do this meditation.
Meditation is part of it, but it's absolutely essential. absolutely essential. But we also have to understand the Four Noble Truths. Noble truth number one, dukkha satya. Life the way we're living it sucks. It's the second one, samudaya satya. Literally the accumulation or the arising. The cause of my suffering is my craving, raga and dvesha, attachment for things, my aversion for things. How do I get rid of it? Freedom from that. Nirodha satya. The cessation of that is freedom. How do I do it? Eightfold path, which is abhyasavairagyacha in another form. It's not just meditation. It's also the other pieces of it. It's understanding how the mind works. It's understanding what's my problem. And why do I have ignorance? I have ignorance because of vasana, these accretions, these sanskaras, these vasanas. And we have to engage in a process to remove them. Yes, meditation is our principal tool. But one of the things yoga says is if you're squirmy, I don't know if you've had this experience. Maybe you know people, they sit in meditation and I just can't do it. It's not for me. Oh, I do meditation when I'm on my exercise cycle. It's not meditation. I listen to guided meditations. I meditate, I smoke a doobie and I lie down and listen to nature sounds. That's not meditation. Your meditation has to also be informed. Is that helpful?
Yeah. I think the hard part is figuring out, what you were mentioning earlier about finding your role that has, I'm paraphrasing you very inaccurately, but knowing what your role is in this current life.
Well, that's what the Buddhists would call right livelihood.
Yes, and knowing that is, it's not always straightforward because.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's not the ultimate answer. That just solves a lot of problems. If you're not doing right livelihood, you're going to spend 8 hours a day in resistance.
Yeah, because we can always find conflicts, right? We can exclude certain things. You walk down the street, somebody's having a fight, and you just ignore it. And you've now created a safety thing for yourself. But if you did go and get involved, you may not be prepared to deal with it. And so what is your right role in that position?
That's where you have to trust intuition. I can't give you an answer.
Yeah.
You can't operate through life out of recipes.
It is a struggle.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a struggle. The quieter your mind, the more insightful you will be. Yeah. All right, next, yes.
Ask a question. Going back to this idea around, I'm not articulating my question, kind of like thought replacement. And the idea of like, so I'm finding that it's easier to be in like a very calm state when I'm meditating, for example.
Yes.
But taking the dance example, like what I'm trying to think about is like, if, for example, I'm in the moment and dancing and my mind is racing with like thoughts about the sequence, for example, I notice, okay, immediately I see that connection between my mind and my body. So like, I will stop dancing or I will mess up or whatever. I'm just kind of trying to think about like when I'm actually in the moment of doing something and I'm not, actually sitting down and meditating, like what are some practices to try to stay present?
Let me give you an example. I'm reading the novel Shogun. I don't know if any of you read it, by James Clavell. And there's a scene where this one samurai is demonstrating his prowess as an archer. And so he pulls out an arrow and he launches it through the paper wall, hits the post 200 yards away, and then immediately does another one, goes through the same hole, hits the same place, and a third arrow just. And Blackthorn, the English fellow, was astounded at this. How did the samurai get to the place where he was able to shoot with no mind? Lots of practice. So again, I can only use my own career as a singer. In the practice room, I do my scales. I study the language. I go through the phrases. Go to the gnarly parts. Don't practice just the stuff you do easily. Do the gnarly ones over and over again. And there is something about long-term kinesthetic memory, the memory of the body itself. So like the first time I would sing a concert or sing a role or sing a song cycle, it took more concentration. But like when I did the Schumann Dichtlied, I did it dozens of times. I wasn't worried about forgetting anymore. So that's just part of the problem of this being your first solo dance concert. When I was studying the Schubert Winterreise with Jess Thomas, he said, oh, this is a 10-year cycle. It's going to take you 10 years before what we say in singing Ingolata in the throat. So you have to be patient with yourself. But I love what Beethoven said. He said, I can excuse wrong notes. I cannot excuse people playing without passion. So you very likely will mess up. It's okay. But don't dance without passion. Okay, so here Krishna is saying, and back to what Padma, is that right?
Correct.
What he was saying about the fruit of meditation. Ultimately, the fruit of meditation is when I have the direct experience of my essential nature. Before that, we have what's called paroksha jnana, indirect knowledge. We get that from the scripture, we get that from the teacher. But when we have those moments when the mind gets very quiet, the attentive faculty is introverted, Koham, who am I? What's my essential nature? Or as the Zen Buddhists say, what was your face before your mother's birth? Then we begin to see the fundamental unreality of any personal sense of self. We have something, I would say, real with which to work. All right, next verse.
Tasmadasakta sattatam karyam karma samachara asakto hyacharam karma paramapnoti purushaha. Therefore, always perform actions which should be done without attachment. For by performing actions without attachment, man attains the supreme.
Yes. So we will be impelled into actions by the force of the past, our past vasanas. If we perform them with a sense of identification, with attachment to the fruits, with What am I going to get out of it? It's all about me. That reinfects the mind with vasana. We stay on the crazy, funny farm wheel of samsara. But if we act in the world, do it in the spirit of service, and we let go of our attachment to the outcome. Honor and dishonor, success and failure, gain or loss. We exhaust the vasana without creating new. Now, here's another very simple technique for being able to do that. Swamiji used to say, put your mind where your hands are working. Ultimate reality is always encountered in the now, never in the past or in the future. So it does no good ultimately to think about your dance recital now. What's happening now? Right now, you're sitting in my living room. Let me show you a little trick. Listen to the traffic outside. While you're doing that, see if you can feel your seat on the floor, the chair, the sofa. Now take a deep breath and pay attention to your breathing. I'll do all three things at once. It'll just stop your mind right away. The mind cannot deal with more than three things. Some of us, if you get proficient at this, just focusing on one experience in the now. Bring your mind into the present. Just stop and pay attention to your breath. Or if you're looking at a vase of flowers, do nothing but look at the vase of flowers. Or if you're listening to the traffic, do nothing but listen to the traffic. Then all the craziness falls away. Ultimately, it's not real. Very powerful technique. I love to tell the story. I used to hate doing dishes. It was punishment when I was a kid because my mother hated doing housework. So if we misbehaved, housework was punishment. So as I moved into adulthood, I always had sinks full of dirty dishes. I just hated doing dirty dishes. Until I got this trick from Swamiji. When I'm washing the dish, I do nothing else but wash the dish. All that stuff just went away. Every morning I do my dishes. And it can be with anything. Any thoughts on this? Very simple, but powerful technique. Again, understand the underlying purpose of it all. to act in the world, you're going to act. You're going to act according to your vasanas. But we want to act in a way where the vasana gets exhausted through the action. And we don't engage in the chintya, the after the fact rumination about it, which then reinfects the mind. Then over time, vasana pressure gets less, and we find we're able to meditate with much greater ease and facility. We're not so squirmy. We have real moments of peace. Next verse.
Karmaneva hi samsiddhim asthita janakadaya loka samgrahamevati sampashyan kartumarhasi. Janaka and others attained perfection fairly through action alone. Even with a view to protecting the masses, you should perform action.
Yes. So we have the ideal of the renunciate in the tradition. Nachiketas always comes to mind. This young Brahmin boy, he's like 8 years old, and he's perfectly willing to leave life itself and go to the palace of Yamaraj. He's out of station. He just sits there for 3 days in meditation. No food, no water. Perfect renunciate. We hear about the Ramana Maharshis or the Swami Kapolavana. Why didn't me? I got a job, I got a family, I got things to do. And here Krishna says, well, we also have the ideal of saints like King Janaka. There are several versions of the story of King Janaka and his enlightenment. My favorite is he's at a party and he had a little bit too much to drink. And he's a little bit tipsy. So he goes out on the veranda to get some fresh air. Now his mind is very subtle. And these celestial beings come to him and give him the Vedantic truth. His mind goes into samadhi. At first he says, oh, such bliss. Why should I engage in this vain, empty world? And then he goes a little bit deeper and he goes, wait a minute. This world is also Brahman. What is to be gained by leaving it? The names and forms are pratibimba. They're like reflections in a mirror. So he comes back to the party as a fully realized being, fighting his wars, doing all the things that kings do. He didn't give away all his money. He did his dharma. But it's extolled, it's abandoned, supreme detachment, great love. So the thunderous message of Gita is you do not need to leave your life. What you need to do is leave the world. Meaning, see it for what it is. Sarvam Kalpidam Brahma. All this Or to put it in more technical terms, many of the scriptures extol the state of nirvikalpa samadhi. This is the mind state of manunasha, the complete disappearance. The mind is gone. In that state, there's no individual, there's no phenomenal world, only pure awareness. The mind returns. Absolutely no. Aham Brahmasmi, I am that part of this Brahman. But that is not the highest state. The highest state is what we call sahaja samadhi, natural or continuous samadhi, meaning a person of steady wisdom sees the self in and through all the objects of the world. The mind doesn't extrovert into raga and dvesha as it did before. Whether they're in meditation or whether they're acting in the world, makes no difference. Any thoughts on it? That's like an upset. That's like some silly idea in my mind. I think they're doing donuts. It's just like when my mind spins on something, guess what? It passes. Just like my stupid mind states. All right, next verse.
Yadya charati shreshthas tadeve parujannah sayat pramana prakastha tanuvartate. Whatever a great man does, that other people also do or imitate. Whatever they set up as the standard, that the world or people follow.
So here what Krishna is talking about is we don't wait until the world thinks that we're an important person to start speaking with wisdom, having right speech, acting with integrity. If any of you are parents, you know that children don't listen to what you say nearly as much as they watch what you do. I used to say, do what I say, not what I do. Kids never believe that. But if you start acting in the world as if what you say, what you do was of great import, be interesting to see what people respond to. I think even in business, social situations, we've all come across people, you may be one yourself, who have natural leadership qualities. Ishvara. So here Krishna is saying, if you act in this way, if you act in the world according to your Swadharma. Love what you do. If you can't yet do it, do what you love. Or do what you love, and if you can't, love what you do. Work at it. Be detached. Be a servant leader. It's not about you as an ego. Throw yourself into something greater than your own stupid little ego needs. Let go of the result. Watch what happens. So what Krishna is saying, this is a paradox. This knowledge gives you mastery of this world and the beyond. The paradox is the yogi becomes a more and more effective person in the world, in Vyavahara, our world of transactions. As we change our priorities. Any thoughts on this? All right, next one.
Name parthasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kimchana nanavaptam avaptavyam vattayeva cha karmani. There's nothing in the three worlds, O Partha, that has to be done by me, nor is there anything unattained that should be attained by me, yet I engage myself in action.
Yes. So we can look at this from two standpoints. From the standpoint of the absolute, ultimate consciousness has no need to do anything. Yet Maya Shakti is co-eternal with the infinite. The universe keeps going on. But if we look at Lord Krishna as the avatar, the divine incarnation of God, he had nothing that he needed to do. Yet he fulfilled his Swadharma in the world. Now, what is our Swadharma? That's something each one of us has to work out for ourselves. I think of Swamiji's teacher, Swami Tapovana. Lived in a tiny mud hut up in Uttarkashi. Owned 3 kurtas. One to wash, one to dirty clothes, one to wear. No shoes. Didn't even wear a dhoti, just a long kneeling kurta. A big shoe, beg food once a day. Would only work with 1, 2, or 3 students. Never came down below Rishikesh. Didn't want to be down where there was so much agitated mind. This Swadharma. Revered is a great tapasya. But Swamiji, he was a Jagat Guru. Traveled all over the world. You go to one of his lectures in India, tens of thousands of people at his lectures. It was an orange dot half a block away. Wrote 40 books. Personally answered every letter that was sent to him. No 4 letters. Taught 7 days a week, 365 days a year, except when he was traveling. tirelessly working, tirelessly working. You and I may be somewhere in between. But what Krishna is saying here is your serenity, your peace of mind is not dependent on external circumstances. Karma or the Lord, however you want to say it, will place you where you need to be. And don't avoid the triggers. That's guru. If I'm disturbed, no matter the cause, I'm the one with the klesha. I'm the one with the affliction. I'm attached, I have expectation, I'm identified. That's axiomatic. That does not mean that the world and its people are not oftentimes quite wrong. A bunch of professors at the university are clearly misogynist. That's wrong. But if you get upset, it's your problem. You do your dance, you get a bad review. Their opinions are none of your business. Your job is to dance. This is how a yogi endeavors to live. All right, let's do one more.
Yati hyahyam na varteyam jatu karmanya tantritaha mama manuvartante manushyaha partha sarvashaha. Or should I not ever engage myself in action without relaxation? People would in every way follow my path, O son of Buddha.
So basically, if the leaders in the world quit acting or quit acting with integrity, quit acting as yogis, then the society falls. So in our country, we had 4 years of national leadership where lying was normalized. It's not stopped there. Now we have major news companies where lying is normalized. I tell you, it will filter out. We're going to have young people who, this is what smart people do, we just lie. Antithetically, when people in positions of leadership operate from spiritual principles, the rest of the society starts to move in that direction. Swamiji came out of the Himalayas, went up there in 1947 is when he took Diksha, I think. And his first Upanishad class was 1952. And his vision was this: India is now free. Now we need to free Indians. And his target audience was the college-educated young people, because he knew this is our next generation of leaders. And they need to have values. This was his mission. Now, those of us in the West got the leftovers, but that's okay. Now, was he successful or not? I don't think in the end he cared. That was his Swadharma. He gave the results to the Lord. All right, what verse are we on for next week?
24.
24 for next week. We'll end here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.